Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and this is going to be a brief little review for Kids on the Soap, Episode 12, All Blues. Now, this is going to be pretty spoilery. If you haven't seen it already, please click off the video and come back later. Otherwise, you'll be sticking with me, and let's rock and roll. You know, there's a cloud of melancholy that hangs over this episode as it begins, pretty much because we're picking up right where we left off. Sentaro has left, and this is after the just weight of the world has crashed down on him. He's contending with his father returning, who he remembers being abusive to him. He's got schoolwork and being held back a grade and having to, think about moving on and getting a job and just taking care of his family looming over his head, as well as the car accident that put his sister in the hospital in the previous episode. And so he just feels like, the world has turned on him. So what better way to answer that except turning back on the world? And so essentially that's what he's done. And as a result, we see that there's a black mood over Kaoru. Without Sentaro around, he's just become focused and determined on the schoolwork. And as the year is winding down and graduation is looming, he's thinking about college. And he's kind of doing it almost like, machinations. Like, it's just his way of focusing his energy so he doesn't have to face the grief of his friend not being there. And he's distanced himself once he sees that at one point this school has opened the roof that was once a safety zone for he and Sentaro by themselves. Now it's open to the entire school. And Matsuoka basically approaches him and says, you really have to get over this. You have to move on from this friend that left. And he agrees, Kaoru agrees, but you see that he's not having an easy time of it. So much so that it all comes to a head a little later on when we see that Ritsuko still has feelings for Kaoru, but nothing has blossomed between them. And she's prompted by a friend to, go after him. So she does. They make an appointment to hang out at her place a little later and do some studies as as I say, the school year is ending and they have to worry about the tests coming up in college. And we see just how dark a place Kaoru is in, because at one point of a certain level of vulnerability with Ritsuko, he pushes himself on her. Now, we've seen something very similar to this between Sentaro and Yurika in a previous episode before her feelings for Brother Jun were known to him. And it was very kind of, watching the series from the beginning, seeing Kaoru do this, felt almost like a regression for the character. Like he's basically gone back in on himself from all the evolution we've seen since the beginning. It was very shocking to see, especially when he says he's glad that Sentaro's gone because he was standing in the way of their love, their potential love. And so it's just very shocking. And of course, Ritsuko she reacts in very much that way. She screams, "What the hell are you saying? You're crazy," that kind of thing. And Kaoru leaves. And we find out that he's going away to Tokyo, to college. And of course, Ritsuko just breaks down. She's not sure what to think about the situation. And we follow this up with Kaoru basically saying his goodbyes at the train station. He's there with his aunt and his cousin, I think it is, and he says his goodbyes to them. He's getting on the train, and that's when Ritsuko's father actually shows up at the very last second to give him a sort of parting, gift, and it also contains lunch made by Ritsuko herself. And so he gets on the train and sort of solemnly, moves on with his life. And of course, as the train is pulling off, we see that Ritsuko actually did kind of come to her senses and wanted to say goodbye to Kaoru, but of course the train is pulling away, so it's quite too late. But Kaoru ends up running through the entire train till he gets to the back door to get one last glimpse of her. And as their eyes meet, the sort of look on their faces, he sheds a tear and she smiles and waves goodbye, saying goodbye to a dear friend. We see that as this relationship comes to a close for all intents and purposes, they're ending on a high note. And that is at least, gratifying to a degree. But of course, it's not, because you wanted to be able to see these characters come together once again in a big, sort of explosion of positivity. And that's kind of antithesis to what I think the theme of this series is. It's very much about real life and real relationships and the way, friends will lose touch and they will become parted in life as their lives take different paths. So at this point, we actually jump ahead 8 years, and we see that very much so has the lives of these characters gone their separate ways. Kaoru is now an intern doctor at a hospital, and he sees on TV one night that Matsuoka is now a famous actor and singer and that kind of thing. And I'm just thinking, that's not really who I wanted to see having a blast by the end of the series. I wanted the main characters to, but, And because there's still a little bit of the episode left, you're hoping that they'll run into each other or something will happen. And basically, Kaoru does run into Yurika, who is now pregnant with Brother June's child. And she shows him a photo of somebody who could very well be Sentaro after asking about, did Sentaro leave? Because, of course, Yurika wasn't there at that point. And Kaoru chases this picture. It's like a dream come true for him. So he chases it down, and he tries to find the young priest in the making, which is really interesting. The line of work Sentaro decides to get in, becoming a priest who takes care of orphaned children and things. And he ends up tracking down the church that Sentaro is supposed to be at. He sees the drums that are there, and he just breaks out laughing, and I just chuckled out loud. And, of course, he starts playing the organ, and this is what gets the attention of Sentaro, who is very much there as a priest in the making. He's taking care of kids, and they go in and they have one last, sort of just great opportunity to play Monin again. And once the head priest gets wind of it, they run out of there basically, as they have done out of the school so many times. And the great thing toward the end, though, is that a letter was sent to Ritsuko asking her to come. And we see sort of a last shot of the three of them back together again, and sort of it fades out there as if it's letting you, the viewer, decide what happens next. And while not fully satisfying in being able to see it happen, I know in my heart of hearts the way the story is going from that point on. Basically, these people are together, and you can decide, do Ritsuko and Kaoru get married? I mean, basically, it's up to you. And I can just think of no greater anime right off the top of my head that pulls you in this much, in especially a short 12 episodes like this has been. Most anime series would take 24 to 26 episodes to bring me even remotely to this point where I'm attached to characters, and I don't want that world to go away. I don't want it to end. And this has only been 12, and it's been just a whirlwind of emotion and character arcs, evolutionary character arcs. And I think at the end of the day, the real world aesthetic that this took, while not being sort of the fantasy, everyone is happy in the end, happily ever after kind of ending that I was hoping for, I have much more respect for the series that it ended in a realistic way. I feel like this has just been a great experience watching this show. These are characters you can aspire to be like, because even though they do stunt themselves like we all do every now and then because of anxiety or fears or whatever it is, they have often confronted their demons, and they have often done so in a very relatable way. And so the viewer, no matter what the age, can identify, whether you are older and you've been through it all before, or you're younger and you're just going through it now. You can pick up on that, and you can relate to these characters. And you just, each episode left you wanting to see more, that kind of thing. And no greater compliment can I give it than to say I am honored to have experienced it. I am honored to have been able to watch it all the way through from beginning to end. And I'm going to be twice as honored when I can share it with my sister, who I hope to eventually debut to, the series once it comes out on DVD and everything. And I know she's going to love it. And I know that if you're listening to this now, you've probably seen the episodes and you've probably enjoyed the series as much as I have. And even if you don't necessarily feel fulfilled by the end, I think you'll agree with me in saying that this was just a great experience from beginning to end. And I will definitely treasure it, and I will definitely love seeing it all again. So pretty much that's my thoughts on the finale for the series, as well as the series as a whole. And I would love to hear from you guys if you've seen it, what you've thought of the entire run of it. How has it left you feeling by the end? Please comment below, or you can post it as a video response. And otherwise, that's going to be it for me. So I hope you're all doing well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.